This is one of my highlights of the preview day because you get to hear from your peers who are implementing the program. One of the biggest questions we always have is, how do I implement this? Who gets certified? Is there flexibility in that? Are companies different? Those sorts of things. And so I'm very excited about our panel today, who I would consider all three very good friends of mine and people that I respect and admire. First of all, Megan Wilkie is Director of Advisor Development for Mutual of Omaha Advisors. Megan and her teams focus on attracting talent at the leadership and advisor level, generating new org productivity, and helping new advisors understand how to build a practice from scratch. Megan has spent time as an advisor, recruiter, and field leader, most recently in the home office. She has a passion for mentorship in and outside of the workplace, holding many different volunteer roles, mentoring professionals and teams in her community. Megan and her husband, Clint, live outside of Omaha, Nebraska with their two beautiful daughters, Reese and Macy, and are looking forward to welcoming their first son in November. So congratulations, Megan Wilkie, to that.
Hey.
Coming to you, hot off the press from vacation, so refreshed and tan, Carrie St. Clair is the Executive Director of Marketing Services. She is our representative for all of our Multiline participants that are on the call today. Carrie currently serves as the Executive Director of Marketing Services, where she oversees the areas of agent development, agency promotions, broker-dealer compliance, and advertising and brand strategy, among other things. Began her career at Indiana Farm Bureau in 1997 as the life insurance training specialist in the marketing department. She held that position for 7 years before becoming manager of agent development team and eventually was appointed director of agency and development, and obviously runs a lot of things over at Indiana Farm Bureau. Her firm is very well known for executing. They're one of the best I know at executing and implementing. She's been married to her husband, Scott, for 20 years, lives on the north side of Indianapolis in Fishers, Indiana. They have 2 active kids who keep them busy, Colin age 16, Anna age 13. And so welcome, Carrie. And last but not least, KP, Keith Payne from Western and Southern. He's currently Associate Vice President of Sales Execution for Western and Southern Financial. He has over 38 years experience in the financial services industry, and he brings the unique perspective of someone who's been a field producer, field manager, home office senior executive, and a developer of recruiting and training programs. He has a long track record of leading Western and Southern's most productive revenue groups in the regions and just within the company. He has developed many of the current executives in the organization and in the industry, and he was the principal architect of Western and Southern's recruiting strategy and selection process, as well as their new rep training and orientation program. He lives in the greater Cincinnati area with Charmaine, his wife of 36 years, and he has 3 sons, Justin, Tim, and Kyle. And check this out, all 3 of them are in the financial services business, which I know he is very proud of there. So hopefully my audio is not too bad on a speakerphone, you guys. Well, let's jump right in. And my first question, and we can start, Keith, why don't we go with you on this? Just provide us a quick overview of your distribution system and structure so that you can put a little bit of context of this for the participants on the line today.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Our organization is a traditional setup of what we considered a captive company or a agency building organization. We have about 1,000 reps that are housed in about 150 offices, 200 offices. There's 64 agency managers and about 150 staff managers that report to the agency managers. Those are all under the supervision of 6 what we would call regional people. In our company, we call those divisional vice presidents.
Okay. And Carrie St. Clair, why don't you share your distribution system, what that looks like in the state of Indiana?
Yep, with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, we're one state operation. We've been around since 1934. We have roughly 430 captive agents throughout the state, with agents represented throughout all 92 counties in Indiana. We separate those 92 counties into 3 different districts, and then we further break down those districts into 29 different agencies. So we have 29 agency managers supervising each one of those agencies. As Joey mentioned earlier, we are multi-line and we're captive, so we sell our own proprietary products, including auto, home, farm, commercial, life insurance, and annuities.
Very good. And Megan Wilkie, what about your distribution there at Mutual of Omaha?
We are over a 100-year-old company as well, and I work with the career distribution. We're a branch office structure across the U.S. and Puerto Rico with about 30 different divisions that my team supports.
Good. And Megan, we'll stick with you. What's the reason Mutual of Omaha decided to implement Trustworthy Selling in the first place? What was the need or needs that you all were trying to address?
Good. We went through a lot of transformation to get our advisors to launch with a greater focus on needs-based selling over transactional selling and product-focused selling. So we had already been in the process of really focusing on how we selected and onboarded individuals that would better fit that model. And Trustworthy Selling fit so nicely in our launch week space, as well as the early and ongoing coaching throughout the advisor's first year. So it really solved a need that we had built over the course of a few years.
Very good. And Carrie, what about you all at Indiana Farm Bureau? What was a need that you were trying to fill there?
Sure. Just much like Megan just said, through the years we've done very little training that doesn't pertain directly to the sale of a product or to the use of a system. So we had agents that have gone through really great product training, but yet very little guidance when it came to the sales process. And I think we all know that people don't buy a product or become a client solely for the reason of, man, I love that product. And they don't choose to stay with the company for that reason either. They really see the value in not only the product, but also that connection that they have with their agent. And if you're a new agent, you haven't made that connection yet. So I think this is where Trustworthy Selling comes in. It helps agents better understand how to cultivate that relationship and then move it through their sales process.
Very good. KP, what about you guys at Western and Southern? Why did you all decide to implement Trustworthy? What need were you trying to address?
Retention primarily, Joe. The thing that I would say is our company, similar to most Mutual of Omaha's, we over 100-year-old company, have our roots in home service. And although the home service model has been dead within the organization for years, that whole transactional selling model stayed in place. So over the years, it's been just a slow evolution to move us from more of a transactional-based, product-led organization to more of a full financial services organization. There's been a lot of movement in our company in the last few years, and getting our people fully registered and being able to sell not only the life side of the house, but also the investment side and the retirement side. And so when we were looking at this continued evolution, one of the things that we made a decision to do is we were going to attack who we hire, how we train them, how we hold ourselves accountable to develop them. And that was the birth of sales execution, which is what I'm involved in with our organization. And we knew that we were going to do a compensation change so that this was all going to be rolled out at the same time. The recruiting was going to change, the training was going to change, and how we held ourselves accountable tied to this comp plan. And Trustworthy Selling to me was the obvious choice in moving our organization more towards more of a consultative selling model and away from a transactional model.
Okay. Good themes there, you all. Let's dig deeper and peel back the onion a little bit. Megan, I'm going to start with you. There was a little bit of talk in the overview session about delivery models, and we provide structure, a track to run on, but enough flexibility because every company's different, every distribution's different, geography challenges, et cetera, et cetera. And so, Megan, with you all, you took the reference launch week. And so what you did originally for a couple of years is you had your field managers delivering Trustworthy Selling at the field level. Now, y'all changed that because of the results and success, but start a little bit with your original delivery model and tell us how that worked. But then I'd love for you to dovetail into why you made the change to bring the launch week into the home office, and then we'll kind of evolve from there.
Okay, sure. So what having the system allowed us to do when we rolled out at the local level was, and this is, as I was prepping for questions, kind of a theme, is that we wanted our field managers, we were, a lot of similarities to what Keith said. There was a lot of movement at the manager level, a lot of people that were aggressively pursuing this move away from transaction. And so we needed our sales directors, managing directors, and field leaders to be brilliant at the Trustworthy Selling philosophy, not just the facilitation. So in addition to it being a plug-in way that we can have consistent, sustainable results, because Los Angeles launched in the same way as Atlanta, although in different places. We also gave those field leaders the opportunity to facilitate so much that the philosophies could be embedded in them. So that there was just a ton of good that came out of having our field managers all launch this consistently the same week every month. And it really helped act as a culture builder for us in kind of defining what our advice-based distribution team looks like today.
And then, hey, Megan, just talk, we referenced this in the overview, but here you have, a couple of 150 or whatever the number is, managers delivering the program at the local level. Just talk about the scalability of being able to lean on the videos and how that creates some consistency, even though you are in California or here, and different managers have different knowledge and skill sets on facilitating.
Yeah, it allowed us to onboard managers much more quickly and also host launch classes at a very regular clip in locations spread across the United States. So advisors didn't really have to travel. They could launch close to their hometowns, which really fit our family-friendly focus that we have with our candidates in the beginning. And so it allowed you to launch at that local level on an in-person basis, which was so much fun. And obviously, as I'm quarantined in rural Nebraska, I still think is a pretty cool idea to launch with a bunch of people. But it allowed us to have that scale of knowing what was happening and what was being said to those advisors at their most critical state across the entire distribution.
Very good. And Megan, I'll come back to you on the transition to bring it to the home office and virtual delivery and all that. But Carrie, you all at Indiana Farm Bureau deliver both Quick Start and Pro. So for your new agents and your experienced ones, talk about the delivery model for Quick Start, how that works, and talk about the delivery model for Pro, because that's a little bit different in how you implement that. And just as a reminder, the professional edition, everyone, is for experienced agents and advisors.
Mm-hmm. Sure. We made the decision to incorporate the Quick Start version into our new agent training schools with no cost to the new agents. And then for our veteran agents, we offer the program to them once they've been nominated by their management as a candidate for the class. We don't want prisoners. They want to have to be there and be willing to pay for it. So we do a cost sharing of the program for our veteran agents so they have some skin in the game.
Very good. And then, Carrie, talk a little bit about your Quick Start. When you guys deliver that in the home office, you have them come in. I think that's a 3-week program. Talk a little bit about how that delivery goes. We'll talk later about Facilitator, but talk about the difference in how you deliver timeline-wise Quick Start versus the Pro for your experienced producers, which I think is delivered out in the field in the regions or what have you, the 3 regions you guys have. But talk about the difference in delivery between Quick Start and Pro.
Yep, sure. With our new agents, as they come into the company, we do a 3-week-long agent training class. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the tweaks that we had to make that we found out along the way. When we first decided to teach it, we put at the very beginning, the very first 4 days of class, where they came in, they didn't know one another, they are learning trustworthy selling. And what we found was that for some new agents in this group, this could be their first experience with a job in insurance or even in sales. So they didn't have a lot of context to where all this was leading. What was the big picture? Where does trustworthy fit? So after a year of teaching it this way, we thought we'd switch it up and we'd try positioning trustworthy selling to the last 4 days of their training instead. And it seemed to work a lot better to have the agents who, remember, they're all strangers at the beginning of their training. So they've got to spend some time to know each other, the company, the products, the system, and then we decided to tackle trustworthy at the end. And I think it's worked out a lot better for us. With trustworthy, you get out of it what you put into it. So having that kind of group comfort level there and positioning it at the tail end seemed to work best for us. As far as the professional version with our veteran agents, like I said, we split those sessions up, but they're not consecutive days. Most veterans don't have 4 straight days that they can spend with you in a training class. So by splitting it up, where they come in and, we've done sessions in the home office. We've also done them out in the districts as well, where they, learn 2 modules, in a day, and then they go out for 2 weeks, have their coaching sessions, come back and learn a few more modules. We kind of take that same cadence back and forth throughout the end of the program. So with Quick Start, it's all squished together at the tail end of their training, 4 days in a row. And then with the veteran group, we give them some time in between their sessions.
Excellent. So, Carrie, couple of nuggets to unpack there. Originally, you guys might remember when Sarah showed you the Quick Start, we said it can be a 1 or 2 week immersion. In this case, with Indiana Farm Bureau, it was a 3-week immersion, right? That's what their sales school is. Mm-hmm. Some of you might have a month, you know what I mean, or maybe 1 week. I remember some companies have a 1 week. That's really drinking from a fire hose, but that's the way it has to be for certain reasons. So they originally did Trustworthy on the front end, realized that they're like a deer in headlights, so we need to teach proprietary process and product and things. Leave Trustworthy for the last week, which, by the way, is right when they're about to go out to the field. So I think that works well. But the key there is you don't have to have it all baked once and for good, right? The key here is you learn, you pivot, you adjust, and figure out what works best for you. And then the other model, if you guys recall, Sarah said it can be delivered over 4 or 5 days over the course of a couple of months. We worked with Carrie and her team to say what works best based on logistics and geography and your culture, and built out a professional training model that works best for them, where you spread that over time. Because, again, you can't expect experienced producers to come into a 1 week immersion. It's just not going to happen. So very good. I love the adjustments along the way. Keith, what about you guys at Western and Southern? You've taken a different approach where you're using it more like a career school, where they have to qualify and then come to the home office. Talk a little bit about your delivery model, because it's a hybrid of virtual classroom, live, virtual classroom, capstone, and stuff on the back end.
Yeah, here's what I would say. To give this context, for years, we had our own home-built training program. It was a classic over a 6-week period. You take the modules and you work with your staff manager locally, and there's the training. So we had this 6-week training program, and at the end of that, sometime during your first 8 weeks of existence, for years, we brought them to Cincinnati for a fast start school. And we were literally spending $1 million+ in bringing people in early in their career that, quite frankly, we had horrible retention results with. So when we started to revamp this whole thing, we said, let's quit thinking about training as a 6 or 8 week period, and let's think about training over a 2-year period. And what we decided to do is we decided to take that 6-week training and say, is this set up properly? Is it set up with the principles of adult learning? Is it micro learning? Is it set up in the way that people would want to take it? So we blew that out to about 6 months. And then the decision we made was that there would be a productivity requirement, and there would also be, did you do the built in-house training through completion? And for those people that had about a 20% bump in productivity over the requirement, they were invited to the Trustworthy Selling. Now, our model, Joey, is a little different. We said that when you come, the staff manager comes, because the patient in our world really was the staff manager, because we knew that we weren't going to move this thing unless we had these frontline leaders believing and buying in and practicing the principles of the consultative selling model. So our delivery model was this. After 6 months, you qualify. Just like I believe Carrie said, there's a cost-sharing piece to it, because we want people that want to be there. The financial rep and their staff manager are enrolled, and they take it together. The first 3 modules were done virtually, 1 module per week, 3 weeks in a row. Then we brought them to Cincinnati for 3 days and did modules 4 through 7. That was in-house, and that was facilitated jointly by a training member from the home office, one of our regional leaders, like what I call the DVP position, and select agency managers, because I was wanting to get influence makers understanding the program and being able to walk the walk and talk the talk. So they would come in for these 3 days, and the cool thing about it was they got to, they had been speaking with each other virtually, and now they got to meet each other as a group And part of that 3-day period, of course, was we would have a reception and have senior leadership, Troy or John Barrett or whoever, would rub elbows with these guys, and we would give them awards based on their participation in the 3 days that they were there for the 4 modules. Then we set up an 8-week coaching period where the staff manager was certified to be a coach, and for 8 weeks we would say, okay, now let's apply what we've learned, modules 1 through 7. And during that 8-week period, we would have them do module 9 early on in it, and then we would have them apply what they've learned, and then we would prepare them for a capstone, and then the capstone was conducted by their regional leader, the divisional vice president. And that put a little bit of seriousness to it, because now I've got to demonstrate that I can do what the principles and the competencies in this class, but I'm not doing it to my manager. I'm not doing it to my manager's manager. I'm doing it for my manager's manager's manager. And because of the seriousness of that, it created more of an ownership. And the last piece to this was we pulled out Module 8, which is basically deepening client relationships, and we held that until they were in the business for a year. Joey and team helped us to personalize this whole program to say, you've got enough clients now, it makes more sense to go after the deepening client relationships, and they coordinated with our marketing department to personalize it to our terminology and to our tools, so it made better sense for them. So that period from the module 1 through the capstone is about a 3 to 4 month period, but they don't earn it until after they've been here for 6 months. What I would say for the people listening in is the people at HPN will work with you to personalize your delivery model. And how we did it was I literally grabbed a couple leaders from our training team here in the home office, and we went to Chicago, quite frankly, and spent a day with Joey and his staff and his team. And we brainstormed this, and we put this on the board. We whiteboarded this. Okay, we have a blank board. If we wanted to do this right, how would we do this? And the model that we came up with is part virtual, it's part face-to-face, it's facilitated by training people, by executives, by local managers, and the staff manager is also a participant and then takes the role of the coach.
By the way, Keith, we call that room the collaboratory for a reason. But that's the kind of high touch that HPN and LIMRA does, because every company is different, every culture is different. I mean, even if you all deliver this down at the local level, geography is different, right? So even agency managers can deliver it different ways. Keith, just a point of clarification, the capstone that you guys do regionally, that is live and in person, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm speaking, what I'm describing, guys, is this is all pre-COVID, because once state regulations and guidelines put in, we've had to make adjustments, like I'm sure every organization that's using this. But the way our original design was is exactly, they would come into Cincinnati and do that face-to-face, and then the capstone was face-to-face with the divisional vice president.
Yeah, and some of the pieces you guys doing, Keith, is you're going for a whole cultural change where the managers, the regional vice presidents, they're all using the vernacular, singing from the same songbook, all of that stuff. Right. And it's a good segue, Keith, for the COVID real quick. Megan, back to you. You all were delivering it at the field level. We're going to share some results in a little bit, but it was going so well, you all decided, hey, it's worth it to bring them to the home office out of the gates for launch week. Talk a little bit about that, but also talk about you all have done a nice job of pivoting to the virtual classroom environment during COVID. So maybe address those two things, the transition to the home office, and then in the middle of it, you had to do the transition to virtual classroom.
Yeah, we had the opportunity, much like Keith said, to collaborate with Joey a little bit, and we've seen such good results with what Trustworthy had done to our culture that we wanted to double down in our investment of launching new advisors by bringing them into Omaha for a new agent school feel. They do come into our home office as well for Capstone if they qualify, so they have to qualify for Capstone, and launch week would be how we would kick them all off. The reasons for doing that were because with all of the new advisors that we've been recruiting and running through this Trustworthy system, our organization has evolved, and this year we really need to double down and take our belief in the Trustworthy philosophies and further apply them through joint field work. So one of the ways to do that was to free up our field leaders' time that week and take some of the launching responsibilities back. So it's just another testament to how flexible the system can be. As our organization's needs evolved, we were able to do that as well. And the first Omaha launch week was set to be April, and we were quarantined as an organization on March 13th. So my team had done a lot of work and was very excited for that class that got pulled out from under us due to COVID. And then we made the decision to move the home office launch experience to virtual. And we have since April launched 190 people, and 186 have graduated. So we have done a lot of launching virtually, and really what allowed us to do that was we didn't have to create the content. So we were able to deploy something that we call flipped instruction, where the attendees are to watch the videos and fill out the guides themselves and then bring those into class, because you can't have people in class for 8 hours a day in a virtual world. It just doesn't work that well. And so what we're doing is having them learn the material and then come to class to discuss. We implement practice, so there's lots of language practice, as well as call nights each night that are hosted virtually.
Very good. And then, hey, I'm going to transition into facilitator and coaching certification. I saw in the chat bar earlier we had questions about that, even in the general session. Carrie St. Clair, I'm going to come to you with this. Talk about, okay, you've got Quick Start and Pro. Who were certified as facilitators to deliver the program, but who was certified as coaches to reinforce the concepts in those 5 structured coaching sessions at Indiana Farm Bureau?
Sure. Well, I'm a facilitator along with my manager of agent development, and then our 3 district sales directors are also facilitators. So those 3 district sales directors have each of those 29 agency managers reporting up to them, just to give you an idea. So we have, like I said, myself, another manager, and then 3 district sales directors. So there's 5 of us as facilitators currently. Then we've certified our 29 agency managers as coaches, as well as our district sales advisors, who are kind of like managers in training, who assist our agents with joint work and development. So for the facilitator training, we all prepped. We prepped the modules we were supposed to prep to pass. We did our certification via live webcam, and it worked out well, I believe. And then for the coaching certification, we actually had Lisa Kellenick come to Indianapolis, and she did an accelerated version of the preview day and took our 29 agency managers and DSAs through the material. So it was a fun and very effective few days.
Good. And then Keith, in your world, oh wait, Carrie, I have a question for myself. On the Pro, who is coaching? Are the divisional sales managers coaching and reinforcing the veterans on the Pro edition, or who's doing the coaching there? Or is there agency manager?
They're agency managers, and then we also have our district sales advisors. Sometimes we found that some agency managers are a little more comfortable with the coaching process than others, and so until they, really get kind of fluid in the language and the material, we've made those district sales advisors kind of our in-house experts as well as coaches, so they'll do maybe a kind of a tandem ride there with our agency manager to serve as the coach.
And hey, Carrie, the DSAs, to be clear, they're kind of your agency managers in training, right? That's like a rotational position where they get in that role to get familiar with the home office resources. They're helping in their regions there. They'll eventually become agency managers, correct?
That's the plan. Yep. Yeah.
And the beauty there is, by the time they're an agency manager, they're already well-versed in trustworthy selling. So from a cultural standpoint, they're able to, beat that drum.
Mm-hmm.
KP, what about you? Talk about who got certified as facilitators and who gets certified as coaches in the Western and Southern world.
Yeah, there's Dennis Dietz. I want to do a shout out to him. He's the head of our training for our company. He and his huge team of 3 people all got certified as well as myself, but then we certified 7 DVPs, the regional position, and then we chose 9 what we would consider influential agency managers. So we, out of the gate, we certified 7 DVPs, 9 agency managers, to 3 people in training and myself. Then what happened?
As facilitators, right?
All as facilitators, all as facilitators. Then the other piece to this, I just want to make sure that I call attention to. Then Dennis and his team worked with some people from LIMRA on how to learn how to be a producer so that they could produce these virtual sessions properly. So that was really a big help, because fast forward, Dennis's team, they are skilled now at producing these sessions using this Adobe Connect, just like you guys are doing now, making this presentation as we're doing this today. Now, when the rep qualifies, they, as I said before, the staff manager, the person who they report directly to, they attend the experience with their qualifier. And as soon as we got through the 3-day face-to-face session, we would then certify the staff manager as a coach so that he could coach that 8-week period after the face-to-face class.
And just a clarification there, Keith. So if you guys remember, we briefly touched on this. We'll go deep dive next week. The 2 requirements of a certified coach is you have to complete the 2 self-paced e-learning modules, and you have to complete the program one time in its entirety. So the way that Keith and them have designed it is a staff manager, which is like their mentor agent manager, goes with them to the home office to participate. So they're involved with those 3 virtual classroom sessions, the live sessions. So that's them checking the box off of having participated in that program. In Carrie's instance, instead of them having to participate in it, they worked with some extra resources we have to conduct a Trustworthy Selling preview day, which we allowed to count as check the box that they've gone through the program on there from that standpoint. And then, hey, Megan, just to wrap this up with you, just clarify, like, who is facilitators, who's coaches, knowing that that's changed a little bit with your new model that you're delivering.
So the facilitators are members of the home office team. Got to give a shout out to Patrick Hackman, who leads our launching team in the home office. So there's a group of about 7 of us that launch all the advisors for the distribution each month. And then the coaches are still the field leaders. All of our field leaders are certified because of us starting with local facilitation, and you need to continue to be certified as you join us as a new field leader. But the coaching is really where the local leadership kicks in for Trustworthy Selling.
Very good. And then I'm going to transition now a little bit on the feedback of the program. But Carrie, I'd be remiss, I thought about this. You all were talking a little bit about Multiline, right? So there are products that come out or solutions in the industry where they go, oh, this is Multiline. And really it's got maybe a Multiline wrapper around it. Talking about Multiline, but also for Multiline, you experienced over the last year or two 1.0 Multiline, and now you all have been experiencing since January the 2.0 Multiline, or you're familiar with that now. Talk a little bit about the Multiline specific edition and the difference you've seen, in your opinion, of 1.0 versus 2.0.
Sure. I'll say, like, Trustworthy Selling, all we know is the Multiline version. That's all we've ever delivered. And it's developed in a way, I'm sure, just like the original version, to be really engaging. You watch videos, you listen to the facilitator break down the material that was in the video, then you do various activities to reinforce the material. I would say the number one improvement between 1.0 and the 2.0 versions was definitely the updated videos. The quality of the videos, top-notch, the content, the links, they are very well done. And the language demonstrations in the Multiline 2.0 version specifically, the ones that address the pivot that needs to happen from a P&C conversation over to that crucial life insurance or retirement planning conversation, they are top-notch. I mean, I'm sure we've all sat through hokey training platforms where, you know, there's that person and they're, you know, like a robot saying exactly what they need to say. And with these language demos, I mean, you can really see it coming out of any one of your agent's mouth. I mean, honestly, they are very well done. But I would say that the pivot that happens between, you know, P&C conversation over to life, the language demos, and then the videos are very well done, very well done.
Yeah, on the 1.0, we didn't have, we had like one, the market opportunity was the animated video was Multiline. Now there are 9 skill videos and 3 specific language video, and the case studies in the capstone now are Multiline specific as well. So we're very proud of that, and with our partners, you guys, as well as some other Multiline partners, we were able to do that. And Carrie, just getting into feedback, I know we're just now going through the BERT process of looking at the ROI analysis, but anecdotally, what's been the feedback amongst your new agents that go through Quick Start and your, maybe more importantly, is the experienced producers? Because again, if you are going to take time out of the business for training and development, it better be good or you're going to hear about it from experienced producers. What's been the anecdotal feedback at Indiana Farm Bureau?
I'd say for new agents, remember it's at the very tail end of their training. I think that they leave on a high note. I mean, they are impressed to say, wow, this new company that I'm going to work for has dedicated the resources, not only just the individuals to take me through this material, but also financially, the commitment to take us through this. And for new hires, like I said, for many of them, this could be their first sales job. So to learn how to have those meaningful conversations right from the very beginning of your career is just vital. For the veteran agents, it's cool to see because they learn some nuggets in each trustworthy class that they're in. When we debrief prior modules before each class, there's always a veteran agent that says, oh, hey, I tried this out last week and guess what? It worked. And so, you always have your people that come in and they think they've got it all figured out. They're kind of cautious at first, but then to really see them roll up their sleeves and dive in, I think that's key. And one other piece I want to bring up too is management. The managers like that they have a roadmap for coaching, especially the new agents. I mean, many of our managers have been in their positions for several years. So to go back to onboarding a new agent and relive some of the struggles that go along with it, Trustworthy, we found, has been a great twofer because it's been great developing agents, but it's also an excellent development tool for our agency managers as well.
That's a really good point, Carrie. And we actually hear that from a number of companies. It's been just as important for the agency managers as it was for the agents. And so that's good. And the other thing, Carrie, that's kind of cool with professional is it's designed in a way so that the veterans can learn from one another. So there's a lot of interaction where if I want to show off and say, well, I do it this way and do this. I mean, a lot of that learning is based on what they're doing at the field. And so there's a cross-pollination, which I think is pretty neat,
Yeah, they feed off of each other. We, for sure, when we structured the program, we did not want just all high achievers. And we also did not want all people that were really struggling either, because you're right, they do feed off one another. So we've kind of grouped our classes. So the main component is they want to have to be there. I mean, they are very positive. They're excited about it. Whether you're in your top 20 of our field force or in the bottom 20, they're excited. They want to be a part of it.
Very good. And then Keith, with you guys, I know we're still in the BERT process, but just talk about culturally so far, the feedback from the DVPs, from the managers, from the reps. But also, I think you've done some internal studies and correlations, and maybe share some of that with us.
Well, the first thing I would say is that one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to try to create some hype around this because there were so many people in the field that weren't aware of, what was trustworthy selling and what, another class, this type of thing. So we worked with your group to do some early marketing. So when they first start with the organization, I mean, we sent, here's my fancy PowerPoints I'm going to show you here. Ready? We created, material that be placed in their local offices, and we even had the House of Learning as a notepad as a gift to every new, every new rep. And there was a specific conversation that said, hey, you're in week 5, you want to qualify for this because this is a big deal. So the anecdotal feedback on this thing was fantastic. We've got a ton of feedback that's gone all the way up to Troy. And then I just did a quick bit of bit of data. I just looked at this and I said, okay, are people that don't qualify for trustworthy selling, what benchmarks are they hitting? And then the ones that do qualify, what benchmarks are they hitting? So after their 6-month time period, there's a benchmark every quarter for them to get continued subsidy compensation. And the non-qualifiers, compared to the qualifiers, at the 9-month benchmark, the trustworthy selling qualifiers, 122% more qualifiers than the non-qualifiers. And then, in other words, they qualified for the 9-month benchmark, 70% at the 12-month benchmark, and 400% at the 65-week benchmark. So we have early results that say that the people that go to this trustworthy experience, that they are performing higher than the non-qualifiers, and it's sustaining. Now, we're in the middle of this whole BERT process, and it's algebra times geometry times a lot of stuff, and then you throw in the whole COVID and all the variables, and we got these people from Limmer saying, well, we got to factor this in. So this is going to be a little bit of a process, but we're comfortable that not only what we're seeing anecdotally, but what we're seeing in our own in-house analysis, that the results of the people that go through this is dramatically higher than the ones that don't. What we've got to do is, as an organization, is we have to accelerate the number of people that we push through this thing for it to have the cultural impact that we want it to.
Very good. And then Megan, on the feedback and results, I'm going to turn it to you, because not only have we conducted BERT, business impact results tracking, for 12 months, the control group, well, actually, you guys are doing quick starts, so you have to look at year-over-year productivity, you guys. So think about that. You're not looking at 3 months prior. There is no 3 months prior. You're looking at like the 2016 or 17, I can't remember, Megan, entire recruiting class relative to the ones that went through. And with Megan and Mutual of Omaha, we've extended that BERT process, working with them to see, is it sustainable at 18 months and 24 months? So Jackie, if you can cue this up, and Megan, maybe share just the results, anecdotally, but also, where the rubber meets the road, that you've seen with the new program over at 18, 12, 6, 12, 18, 24-month period.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the impact of our retention is realized, and there's a lot of story behind our cultural transformation and new people that we welcome to the Mutual of Omaha Advisors family during this 24-month time span that we're measuring. And we are still even seeing increases in the survival of those who start with Trustworthy versus those who do not. So I think, again, it's that so many of us are moving further away from a transactional mindset when approaching clients, because that's what they need right now. And so when you look at our survival trends over time, you can see that we're continuously benefiting, and even in there were a couple regulations changes with what we require in licenses, and we've managed to retain more people.
Next slide there, Jackie.
Probably the most exciting thing for us that we've seen anecdotally is that advisors are selling more to the people that they meet with. They're making stickier relationships. And so obviously, with our new org production increasing so much, measuring each launch class and how they produce, seeing growth like this, we refer to it as layer cake, because who doesn't like cake? But we're continuing to build year by year. You have to know my leader, AJ Scar, to recognize that joke maybe. But we're building classes of producers who are faster and better and creating more sound client relationships than they were the year that we measured prior to implementing Trustworthy Selling. So a steady climb there. If you go to the next slide, and this is just huge amounts of increases, especially considering that we are by no means perfect, y'all. We don't have it down. Not everything is being executed perfectly. We've had, like everybody else, amazing amounts of hiccups things go right and things that we're learning as we go. And just the consistency of the system and that system being so scalable across a huge distribution, we're seeing results like the slide on this one at the 24-month level, and then the next slide, if you want to switch over to that, still really, really steady first-year commission product trends. And to us who are so passionate about recruiting inexperienced people into our career, this just means a lot to us to see that people are happy and succeeding, and they're helping more people because of their belief and sound start with the trustworthy selling philosophies.
Very good, Megan. And so the key here is when we first saw it at 6 months, we all got pretty excited, right? Retention, lives productivity, FYCs, premium. Then we said, okay, what about the 12-month mark? Oh, geez. And then we said, all right, let's extend it to 18 and 24. We just got the final group of the 24, and we just continue to be blown away. But it's also a testament, Megan, to your team and changes y'all have made and executing. Same to you, Carrie and Keith. I mean, this takes executing and working collaboratively with us. And it's not perfect, out of the gates or even over time, but it's pursuing that excellence, right, and tweaking it, and you're able to do that. So I see we have 5 minutes left. We do have time for a couple of questions. I'll open it up. If anyone wants to type in the chat bar, just a question for the panel in general or anyone specifically, we'll open it up to any questions about everything's on the table. So thanks for the little line, Jackie. That means put your question in here. That's a good one. Any questions for our panel out there? And while we're waiting for those, Megan, let's just start with you to keep it that way. Just final words or thoughts. What advice would you give to the executives that are on the session today if they were thinking about trustworthy selling? Just what's your final words of advice?
I thought a lot about this because we've just learned so much, but I've seen this come up in some chat, I believe, earlier, but the local managers, the field leaders need to buy in, and they need to believe in the system. So don't allow the fact that this puts it up on a shelf for us to deliver distract you from being absolutely brilliant at the trustworthy selling philosophy. Because as anybody who facilitates several times a day, you could pretty easily check the box and facilitate and do an okay job, but it's being brilliant at those philosophies and then really seeing those in real life with clients and new advisors that makes you a believer. And so encourage your field managers to get to that level of belief in the system, and the results will speak for themselves.
Very good. Hey, we do have some questions coming in, so I'm going to address those, and then I'll come back to you guys. Jason Nichols, our buddy at Modern Woodman. Do any of you also use the HP and Video Library /LMS? I'll go ahead and tell you, Jason, up front, that all three of their organizations use HP and University and Trustworthy Selling. And I didn't have them on the panel just because of that, but I appreciate that question, and I owe you later. So, and Gail, this is a good question. Anybody can answer this. From initial discussion to implementation, how long did it take your organization to launch this? Anybody want to tackle that one?
Probably about 4 months. Probably 4 months to get the discussion with you, get the design, get the facilitators certified. If you were going to fast track it, probably 4 months. I'm sure that Joey, in his creative ways, can figure out a way to do that even quicker. If there was somebody on the WebEx, or excuse me, the session today that would want to even accelerate it more. But about 4 months if you were going to measure the time.
Carrie, Megan, any comments on that, since that's probably a big question in a lot of people's minds?
Same from us, about 4.5 to 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm going to say we were probably about 6 months or so. We came to Preview Day. Remember, Rick and I came to Preview Day, gosh, back in 2016, and we launched January of 2019. But we danced around. It took us a minute to figure out what we wanted to do. But once we really decided what we wanted to do, I'd probably say about 6 months. Yeah.
Hey, Carrie, I have a specific question from Devin Gaffney for you. It says, can you tell us a little bit about how you position this program to your multi-line agents? And maybe he's probably talking about your experienced producers.
Yeah, sure. You know what? It's one of the pieces of feedback that I had too was that we got buy-in from the very beginning from our VP of marketing, our entire executive leadership team, our CEO. They know about Trustworthy Selling and they support it and they promote it. So I think this is critical to the success of the program. Each year, at the very beginning of the year, we do a big kickoff meeting with all of our agents, and not only my boss, but also my boss's boss, who's the CEO, they wanted, stats on Trustworthy Selling, on how it's impacted users, across the country. So why should we get excited about this? So we basically, I think Keith had said it too, we don't want it to come across as just another training gig or just, flavor of the month. So I would say really arm your executives from the top down with what the goals are of the program, what the program's all about. So it's not just, quote, the training department out promoting it, but it's everybody throughout the organization.
Very good. And hey, Annie, I want to address your question. Thanks for being on here. How do you all balance this program with prioritizing a new rep's market development strategies, aka finding people to see? Keith or Megan, either one of you guys want to tackle that? How you balance this with everything else that's on agents' plate, making sure they're out seeing people?
Megan, go ahead, because you train it earlier and I train it later, so I think it would be two good perspectives. Go ahead, Megan.
I agree. So we have a market readiness requirement through the selection process. We do a natural market evaluation, and then the prerequisite week to launch week, we build out that market and then begin targeting who's in that natural market list that we have so that we can customize and tailor our joint work. The first week out of launch, we have them in the field, and we stress gathering favorable introductions and have activity that we track so that they're just continuing to run the sales process. Our sales process is obviously points a lot to Trustworthy Selling, but with the opening appointments, the collaborative discovery, and ultimately presenting solutions, we expect favorable introductions to be gathered. So as we're continuing to master the sales process and the balance of an advisor's first month, we're filling the funnel because we have a lot of at-bats with lots of appointments because of the advisors really going out there and learning how to execute the process jointly with managers.
I love you using the vernacular too, Megan. Favorable introductions, collaborative discovery. It's just music to my ears. So, KP, what would you say to Annie's question on that, since you guys are getting them a little bit later in the process?
Yeah, we have the candidates do a traditional market mapping type exercise in like a pre-contract period. We have them do market surveys once they start. If you remember, they don't get the invitation to Trustworthy Selling till after their first 6 months. The first 13 weeks of their training is all devoted to client acquisition. It's all about favorable introductions and launch days and that type of thing. So our in-house training, which we have aligned our language and we have aligned the process to Trustworthy Selling principles, is devoted to getting in front of people. So it's very concentrated when they start with our organization. The first 13 weeks is basically the prospecting training, and then the second 13 weeks is the sales process training, and then if you qualify, you get into the Trustworthy Selling experience.
Hey, I'm looking at our time, so I'm sorry I got to cut this off, but Keith, since I gave Megan a chance to do this, any last bit of advice that you would give to anyone on the call today that's taking a look at sales effectiveness or maybe even Trustworthy specifically?
I would say and this is the tagline that Joey uses, to where that the research is done by LIMRA, but the selling part from the HPN group as far as practical application, that's really true. It's in alignment with best practice principles. My advice to people listening to this is, first of all, assess your own situation, assess your own training content. How current is it? What we have found is that the stuff that we were training was taught by a generation ago, which was they learned a generation ago. So our training that we had in-house was dramatically dated. So assess your own situation. Is it aligned with adult learning principles? Is it aligned to micro training? And then count the cost of totally redoing that or simply partnering with an organization like HPN or LIMRA and say, you know what, instead of us rebuilding this thing from the ground up, does it make sense for us to partner and just adopt it or personalize what applies across the industry to our own individual culture of our company? So that's what I would advise.
Carrie, and we'll wrap it up with you. Maybe your advice is specifically to multi-line companies that are tuned in today.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going to piggyback on what Keith just said too, is the fact that don't be afraid to rip the Band-Aid off of culture, because we have really thick culture here, you know, and I'm sure many of you guys do as well, but try something new, try something different. And if you think, I don't think that's going to work for us, really take a step back and say, is what you're doing now, are you 100% happy with it? And the folks at HPN are there to help you and to hold your hand. I freaked out a couple times, you know, I think throughout the whole planning process, but they're there to help you out too. And we're very pleased, very pleased.
Hey, thank you. And hey, thanks to our entire panel. I'm sure if you could hear the applause from everyone out there, just a fantastic job. We really appreciate the collaboration. I appreciate the insights. I think it's important for our participants to hear from their peer group, you know, rather than HPN and LIMRA. So I can't thank you three enough. Excellent job, and we'll have to have a virtual happy hour after this, do a little celebrating. So, and everyone else out there, thanks for participating. Today was just the kickoff of the general session. We had the overview that gave you a little taste and flavor of everything. Now the executive panel. Don't forget Thursday from 11 to 1 o'clock. We'll have a break in between. It's another general session where we'll deep dive into the content specifically. Complete your pre-work, please. Your personality styles profile. You're going to want to see what your unique selling style is. Also, you'll want to download the guide. You'll just get one link. You click on it, pulls you in to do all this, and there is some video pre-work. So if you watch that in advance, it's going to be a lot more fruitful for those sessions as we deep dive. If for some reason you didn't get your pre-work, email us, info@tsprogram.com, info@tsprogram.com. Take a look at next week's schedule for the breakout. Tuesday the 11th, we have the Facilitator and Coaching Certification and Delivery Models. We'll do a deep dive there. And you've heard a lot today about the Business Impact Results Tracking, that ROI study. We're going to go in-depth on that. We're going to have the LIMRA expert, Nancy Murphy, and Rick Funk's going to interview her. We're going to run through a case study there to answer all your questions and go deep dive. And don't forget about the Spanish session on my birthday, the 13th. So panel, excellent. I appreciate you all. I appreciate everyone that tuned in, everyone from LIMRA and HPN that made this production possible. And we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Thank you.